Thanks everyone out there for joining us. I think it's probably the afternoon or late morning, so I hope you're having a great day so far. And we're excited about our topic today, which is the ultimate guide to interagency acquisitions, MACs, GWACs, and Coops. So this webinar has everything, most importantly, acronyms, which is one of our favorite things in government procurement. This webinar is based on a blog that we wrote called The Ultimate Guide to Interagency Acquisitions. So if you haven't read that already, we'll make sure we include that in our post-webinar recap. That's an email that we send out to all attendees and registrants. Usually goes out the day after a webinar. It includes a link to the recording of this session, all the PowerPoint slides. So we do provide you with slides. I know that's a very popular question, so you'll get the slide deck. And also some links to the resources that we're going to be covering in today's session. So this webinar is sponsored by Ivalua. We're really happy to be working with Ivalua. Ivalua is a procurement empowerment platform for public procurement agencies. It's a wonderful tool. It's a way to completely unify your source-to-pay suite. So you can see some of the benefits that Ivalua offers here. We encourage you to check Ivalua out on the web at ivalua.com to find out everything that they can do for you. A little bit about Public Spend Forum. Public Spend Forum is a market intelligence platform for public sector buyers and suppliers. We offer supplier and market knowledge and data through our best practice frameworks and standards, including tools and content and information on how to buy and how to improve your profession as a contracting officer or professional. We also offer a great global community and network of peers and experts in public procurement. It's free to register. Usually pretty good discussion in Public Spend Forum. That's at www.publicspendforum.net. So check us out when you get a chance and see all the awesome resources that we have to offer. We've also created GovShop within Public Spend Forum. GovShop is a single place to search, find, and connect with suppliers. Essentially, it's a Google for government contractors. GovShop is easy to use and free. It can work with any browser engine or search engine, so there's no software to download or licenses to buy. But we built it with the specific needs of the government contracting professional in mind. So you'll find filters on socioeconomic categories, business size, location, all the types of things you need to think about when you're sourcing suppliers or doing market research for your next opportunity or procurement. We've got over 750,000 government contractors in GovShop in our database, and each one has a high-resolution supplier profile that has all the information that you need to essentially assess a contractor or potential supplier's relevance for your requirement. You can search by keyword or category code or the types of interagency agreements that we're going to be discussing today. So without further ado, I've already introduced myself, and I'm also joined by Raj Sharma, the founder of Public Spend Forum. So I am the Director of Learning and Content Development. I'm passionate about improving public procurement through entertaining and engaging learning content and tools, and breaking down complex topics into digestible tips and tricks that professionals can use to improve themselves and their work product. Raj, would you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Frank, and welcome everyone. I'm Raj Sharma. I'm the CEO and founder of Public Spend Forum. And my passion, I think as many of you know, is really working with you all to help address and improve the way we purchase $10 trillion in goods and services across the world. So excited to talk about this important topic today.
Great, thank you. So throughout our time today, we want to cover a few topics. And I want to point out first that I know Unisa will be moderating our chat room and taking questions. We definitely encourage that. We love to hear from you. We love to know what's on your mind. So if you have questions, you can submit them through the chat or the Q&A. You'll find both of those at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you hover your mouse around the bottom of your window, you should see that toolbar pop up, and you can ask questions through the chat or the Q&A, and Unisa will feed those to us throughout the session, and if we don't get to them during the session, we can answer them at the end. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? First of all, we're going to discuss how interagency acquisitions work and talk about their advantages for public sector contracting. We're going to overview 4 primary types of interagency acquisitions and how you use them, and then identify some resources that will assist you with using IAs. I know that we have some federal buyers and some state and local buyers on this webinar today. So, some of the discussion will be around IAs that are typically used by federal buyers, but then we're also going to dedicate a good bit of time to cooperative purchasing agreements, which are traditionally used by state and local agencies. We'll finish with a demonstration of how you can use GovShop to search, find, and utilize all these great contracting opportunities. So, what are agency acquisitions, and more importantly, why can they help your agency leverage the full buying power of the public sector? So briefly, interagency acquisitions or interagency contracts are vehicles that are awarded by one agency and may be used by other agencies through task or delivery orders. Typically, the agency that awards the interagency acquisition is the servicing agency. The agency that is buying off of that interagency acquisition is the requesting agency. The typical method of contract for interagency acquisitions is indefinite delivery vehicles, which makes sense if you think about it. Typically, there's an indefinite quantity or an amount of items that may be ordered through and by those task and delivery orders. So there's 2 types, 2 basic types, assisted and direct. Direct interagency agreements are where a requesting agency places an order directly against the master contract, and there's little to no involvement from the servicing agency. The assisted type of interagency acquisition is where the servicing agency takes on all or some of the procurement activities. There's usually a fee associated. You'll see assisted acquisitions primarily in shared services, or when you're using some GWACs, you'll have that option too. Okay, so, the legislative authorities that make interagency agreements possible are the Economy Act and the Cleaner Going Act.
Hey,
so why should you consider?
I can chime in. I think for kind of a couple of the other areas that we'll be covering, especially state, local, and national cooperatives, I just wanted to clarify that sometimes the cooperatives are not managed by a government agency, but they're run by private sector organizations that may be sponsored or recognized as fulfilling certain legal obligations or rules. And then they're setting up the cooperatives, and they're really the managing entity in that case. So just wanted to make sure and clarify that point.
Great point. We actually heard from an industry association that runs one of the more popular cooperative agreements in our most recent episode of the Public Procurement Leaders podcast. That individual was Tammy Rhymes. So if you haven't tuned into that, we'll include that in our post-webinar recap as well. So thanks for that important clarification, Raj. So why should you consider using an interagency acquisition? Well, 2 primary benefits, flexibility and speed to contract. So if you don't want to go through the traditional request for solicitation or request for quote or request for proposal process that can typically take quite a long time, you can leverage an interagency acquisition to get your product or service onto contract faster. There are also lower prices that result when we combine the buying power of the public sector. So if I'm a contractor and I sell widgets and I go and create an individual contract with an agency for 1,000 widgets, I'm going to give them a particular rate. Now, if I join a interagency acquisition where I know there might be 10 agencies that are buying my widgets and therefore I could sell 100,000 widgets, I'm going to give a lower unit cost for that widget. So that's where the combined buying power of the public sector really shines in interagency acquisition, and is one of the primary benefits of why you should use them. There are some considerations. When you use an interagency acquisition, you may have less customization of the product or service, so the special snowflake syndrome is definitely at play. But when you think about it, the time that you'll save and the money that you could save could be worth just considering, using that particular item or service as it's designated. There are sometimes service fees that you have to pay when you use an interagency acquisition, especially with assisted acquisitions. That'll come into play. And there are also considerations around whether your agency can utilize a particular interagency agreement. In some cases, like the cooperative purchasing agreements that Raj alluded to earlier, those are run by a private sector institution. Sometimes your agency actually has to be a member of that cooperative consortium in order to use the cooperative purchase agreement. So you will want to confirm before you go down that path whether your agency can utilize that particular interagency acquisition. We'll discuss that a little bit more as we overview the 4 basic types of interagency acquisitions.
Hey, Frank, one more thing on the previous slide. Is that a question that was just asked about fees, and honestly, it would be great to hear from some of the audience members as well about this. But and if you have some other knowledge of this, but the most common model that we see is suppliers pay a fee, so it never, so for the most part, you don't see the fee per se. And it comes from suppliers, and suppliers pay the fee. So that's the most common model, but there are other models where a fee is paid, such as an assisted acquisition by the acquiring customer. So, but you have to kind of weigh that against the benefits of, again, flexibility and speed, the resources you may save, and also, and do you get better deals as a result of kind of going in with others?
Yeah, definitely. Great point there. So if you're a requesting agency and are using an assisted acquisition, you may pay the fee directly to the servicing agency. In other situations, as we'll discuss momentarily, the contractor will actually have to pay that fee, and that's sort of their pay to play or to be on that interagency acquisition vehicle. So our 4 basic types. This was a little bit difficult to develop because interagency acquisitions have been around for a very long time. And so you've got this basic category of multi-agency contracts, and that's the most general category of interagency acquisitions. I put together a little analogy that I hope will clarify this, but interagency acquisitions are to multiple award contracts as vehicles are to cars. So all cars are vehicles, but not every vehicle is a car. All MACs are IAs, but you've got different types of interagency acquisitions out there. So we've also got government-wide acquisition contracts, or GWACs. These are a subcategory of MACs. GWACs are to interagency agreements as sports utility vehicles are to cars. So a sports utility vehicle is a car, but not all cars are SUVs. Finally, or actually thirdly, multiple award schedules, also known as federal supply schedules, another subcategory of MACs, like sedans, right? Sedans are cars, but not every car is sedan. And within sedans, you have a lot of different categories. So GSA schedules, which are multiple award schedules, I think there's 71 different GSA schedules. So they all sell different types of goods or services, but they make up their own subcategory of MACs. And then for our state and local folks, cooperative purchasing programs, or Coops, as we're going to be referring to them today. So these are basically just multiple agency contracts for state, local, tribal, and public universities or school districts. Coops have unique ordering procedures that are specific to the instrument and established by the servicing agency, or as Raj clarified earlier, the private sector organization that's running the Coop. Anything to add here, Raj?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is on the number 3 there, multiple award schedules. Some of them, like Schedule 70 and 84, I believe, 70 is for IT and 84 is for more medical, is also leverageable as part of a cooperative. So GSA provides those, and many companies within Schedule 70 and 84 can be used by state and local agencies for their needs. And we know many agencies, for instance, right here locally where we are in Washington, so the Fairfax County right next door uses a lot of GSA schedules as they're allowed to. So it depends on, we say that you have to look into your rules, and some are more strict. They don't allow that, some state and local governments, but others have built that flexibility in.
Absolutely right. That's right. So some GSA schedules are designated as Coops, and we're going to discuss that as we go through the 4 basic types of interagency acquisitions. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how you can leverage them for your requirement or need. All right, so the top level, multi-agency contracts, or MACs. These are traditionally indefinite delivery vehicles, and they permit requesting agencies to issue task or delivery orders against the MAC. Generally, these are done as direct acquisitions, and they're authorized by the Economy Act, which you can read more about at FAR 17.5. So the pricing and terms are established at the MAC level. So requesting agencies will not have much room to negotiate on the rates and terms of service. Now that's not hard and fast, because I believe that contract holders can negotiate on their rates under certain MACs, but they also have to honor sort of the most valuable customer pricing on those things. So you have to sort of understand how each MAC works and what your flexibilities are before you go in that direction. We'll talk about examples of MACs in a minute, but one of the things that you do when you're determining whether or not you're going to use a multi-agency contract is to produce a written determination and findings memorandum. Within that, you discuss why the MAC is the best procurement approach. So that requires an understanding of the MAC, an understanding of the ordering procedures, a determination of why you would use that instead of an open market purchase. And then once that DNF has been produced, you provide it to the servicing agency, and you take it from there. So that's effectively how multi-agency contracts work. Here's just a basic example of a determination and findings memorandum that we borrowed from NOAA.gov. There's probably some within your agency, so definitely check that out. I know it's always nice to start with a template though, so if you want to pull this down, we've got it linked right here in the slide. All right, so government-wide acquisition contracts, or GWACs. Like I said earlier, these are a subcategory of multi-agency contracts, but their legislative authority differs along with the type of service that they offer. So GWACs are authorized by the Clinger-Cohen Act, which was established to improve the way that government buyers acquire information technology assets. So GWACs are designated as best-in-class contracts, and some of them are available on the GSA schedule. So we've got, within GovShop, actually, an easy-to-search directory of all the available GWACs. So you can search it by keyword and sort of search and filter within the particular GWAC that you've identified to see, are these GWAC contract holders relevant to what I'm going to be buying? So we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward, but I want to make sure everybody's aware that you can search for GWACs on GovShop. So how do you use GWACs? So it depends sort of what agency you're coming from. I do know in May of last year, the Department of Defense endorsed the use of GWACs. So if you're a DoD contracting professional, you'll want to take a look at that and understand how and why and when you should use GWACs for your IT products or services. You can also check out the GSA's GWAC prices paid tool. That'll help you understand how IT dollars are being spent on GSA GWACs, and so you can kind of understand, is this a good fit for my particular need? Now, I want to call out, agencies can still get socioeconomic credit if they order from a small business concern that happens to hold that GSA contract. So Alliant 2, for example, Alliant 2 has a small business award category. So you can find certain socioeconomic concerns under the Alliant 2 vehicle and still credit that to your annual goals.
So a couple of things, Frank, just to clarify here. So GWACs really can be set up by any agency. So we're obviously talking about the federal government here. And so like you have NASA Soup, for instance, that's managed by NASA, as it says there. So there are a number of different vehicles that are managed outside of GSA and set up outside of GSA. So what we're doing is we're documenting all of them, and then the suppliers against them and the contracts against them, so you can easily find them. But regardless of who's managing them, the key important part becomes if you have similar or multiple contract vehicles like GWACs available for certain things you're buying, then the comparison between the instruments becomes important to say, which one's going to better fit your needs, whether it's, the right set of suppliers and the pricing structure that's being provided there, et cetera, which we can discuss as we move along here.
Absolutely. And, we are, as Raj mentioned, always updating GovShop. So if there's GWACs that you're aware of or any of the categories that we talk and we don't have that on GovShop, definitely send us a note so we can get it added. So our third category is multiple award schedules. So multiple award schedules are also known as federal supply schedules. These are GSA schedule contracts. The Economy Act does not apply to multiple award schedule awards. The FAR does. So FAR subpart 8.4 if you're a federal buyer, or if it's a designated co-op under a GSA schedule, you'll have those procedures as well. Now, unlike some MACs, GSA schedules have a ongoing solicitation period. So any company that has or believes they have qualifying goods or services can download the solicitation for a particular GSA schedule contract and jump through the hoops to earn a place on the GSA schedule. So I do know that can be an intense process, but any contractor out there that wants to get on GSA schedule, it's a possibility for you. You just have to go through the solicitation steps and submit your proposal. So we mentioned earlier, GSA schedules are fee for service, and that means the contract holders or the contractor is going to pay a fee per transaction. So they pay that fee to GSA, to the General Services Administration. Some people might say, hey, well, look, that contractor is just going to pass that fee right onto me, the buyer, through their rates or whatever. I mean, while that may be true, you got to consider the fee and what that's going towards. It covers the time and effort of GSA in managing and awarding the GSA schedules program. And that's an active management task, by the way. They look at annual receipts, how much business is done on the GSA schedules every year. If a company isn't doing enough business on the GSA schedule contract that they've been awarded, GSA will take measures to remove them or to remediate their lack of participation. So GSA does take a pretty active role in negotiating the rates and setting up the contracts. So you're going to basically, like with any fee that you would incur for interagency acquisitions, you also have to consider your time and what you're going to be doing and to set up a contract, and the time that you save being able to order directly from an interagency acquisition vehicle is probably worth it when you consider the couple points you might pay on the transaction. So how do we use FSS and GWACs? Well, first of all, if your anticipated award value exceeds $500,000, you must create that termination and findings memo. If it's under $500,000, you can typically go straight ahead with an order, but make sure you check just any internal policies or procedures that might apply. The nice thing about GSA schedules is you can set up a blanket purchase agreement under a GSA schedule, so that gives you a little extra flexibility in how you can use GSA schedules. Definitely take a look at FAR subpart 8.4 for guidance, but if you determine that a GSA schedule is appropriate for your requirement, you can use GSA's eBuy platform to issue your quotes and manage the process that way. And one nice thing about GSA schedule contracts is that you can add additional items that aren't already on the GSA schedule, and usually those are for sort of corollary needs related to the main procurement. But you'll want to look at the procedures at paragraph 8.4 to F to determine if that's going to be a possibility to you. Again, all GSA schedule or federal supply schedule contracts, and I should mention it's not just GSA. Raj mentioned earlier, the Department of Veterans Affairs also has a federal supply schedule where they sell medical equipment, medical services, and the like. So you can use GSA or the FSS from VA to order these items, and you can search them all on GovShop in our easy to use search utility. All right, so cooperative purchasing agreements, and I should pause here. Have there been any questions or anything from the audience on some of the things we covered so far?
I think all of those questions have been addressed, so please continue.
Excellent. Okay, cooperative purchasing programs, Coops. Coops allow state, local, and tribal government agencies basically to take advantage of pre-vetted contractors and pre-negotiated rates through task and delivery orders. These are primarily a non-federal instrument, but some GSA schedules are categorized as Coops. So state, local, tribal, and school district buyers can use them for goods and services. NASPO is a great example of a cooperative purchasing agreement. They offer a variety of commodities from e-procurement solutions to auto parts. Now, because Coops are awarded at the agency or the state agency level primarily, or by a private sector entity, there's sort of not a lot of uniformity in how you use them. They each have their own unique procedures. You need to review those before you select them, or sort of determine that that's your best method of procurement. Some Coops even require your agency to register as a member of the cooperative in order to use them. So there's a great resource from the Professional Association for Cooperative Procurement, and it's a roadmap to a cooperative purchasing strategy. So we definitely recommend you take a look at that. This was something that Tammy Rhymes talked a fair amount on our Public Procurement Leaders podcast episode, which we released about a week or two ago. So very useful to use. A lot of considerations you want to think about before you even get started. But once you do make that determination, analyzing and evaluating the particular cooperative agreement, the organization, or the actual contracting tool, you're going to want to look at that and make sure that you're getting your questions answered. So you don't get too far on the road to a cooperative procurement strategy before you sort of identify some things that could be problematic or challenging for your agency. So definitely recommend you download that roadmap and take a look at that, and use the Professional Association for Cooperative Procurement as a resource in your cooperative journey. Finding Coops is easy with GovShop. You can search by keyword, you can filter suppliers, you can save suppliers to your short list, export them, create PDFs, insert in your contract file. So definitely, if you're thinking that you might be in the market for an interagency acquisition, or you think that's applicable to something that you're about to procure, go over to GovShop, look at our contracts vehicle section, and see what types of suppliers are on there. And that's just a good way to do that initial market research. Finally, we have a bonus category. So this is a bonus category because other transaction authorities aren't technically interagency agreements, but they're very popular right now, especially in the federal government. So we wanted to talk a little bit about OTAs, and if there's enough interest from the audience, we might decide to hold our own special webinar just on other transaction authority. But what are OTAs? Well, they're commonly used by the Department of Defense, although some agencies now have legislative authority to use OTAs. But they basically provide this flexibility to adopt and incorporate business practices that reflect commercial industry standards. So they're really useful for things like emerging technologies that have both a commercial and governmental application. So OTAs, while they're not contracts, they can help by providing funding to private concerns, companies, to develop commercially applicable technologies that also have governmental uses. And so it's kind of a nice way for the Department of Defense and other agencies to invest in emerging solutions and give companies that capital they need to go out and create awesome next level technologies. You're always going to want to check with your agency leadership and your counsel to determine if your needs are appropriate for an OTA, and you might find that they are. We definitely recommend that you read DAU's OTA guide. I'd consider that a must read for anybody who's considering other transaction authority. It's linked right here in this slide. Suraj, I know OTAs are hot button. What's your impression of them? Where do you see them going from here?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So if I step back first, I think just on GWACs and co-ops and everything, I think one of the tables that we'll make available to everyone is basically, how to consider from a decision standpoint all these different types of vehicles, and also a category by category guide that you can look at, so you can easily see, okay, if I'm buying this, what are the potential options available to you? So that's coming up. But in terms of, Frank, your specific question about OTAs, first of all, I'll just say I'm not an expert on OTAs, but it is an area that we're starting to cover more. What I can tell you is I think it's in some ways, being used more and more often for some traditional things as well. So where it started as, more focused on really innovative technologies, research and development type activity, as you mentioned, now you see more prevalent usage. But there are more of these, so we'll actually have a guide on this, and we'll be putting these up on GovShop as well. But because we saw such a proliferation of these coming up, that it's becoming a little bit hard to follow, right? And kind of which ones are available, for what types of things, how can you use them? And so there are a lot of people interested in it. What we can tell you is the volume in terms of even billions of dollars going through them has gone up tremendously, and they're being increasingly leveraged for technology and emerging technologies. So, so if you are, stuck in the traditional procurement process and you feel like, you need to really speed things up, one of the benefits that is offered through the OTAs is that you can do a procurement much faster. And then two, you can, some of the typical kind of FAR rules and other rules aren't as applicable. So they go outside of that. So so each one is a little different, but there is a governing set of rules that have been set up for this. But again, there's a lot of this activity going on, and we're happy to send you more resources as we proceed, and feel free to definitely ask us.
Yeah, and I'd say if you're interested in other transactions and you're on LinkedIn, Ben McMartin is definitely someone to follow. He's a friend of the program and someone who I think a lot of people consider to be one of the leading experts in OTAs. So we'll see if we can get maybe Ben to give us some thoughts on that, and maybe even have him on a future webinar.
And we do, Frank, I was going to say, we also have a guide that's coming out. We've been documenting all the OTAs and everything. And so we will have a guide coming out of all the OTAs. You'll see them on GovShop as well, searchable on kind of which companies, et cetera, are members. But you can also kind of use our guide. Again, we'll make it available to everyone. That basically lists out all the OTAs and what their focus is and how to get to them. So we'll be coming back, but definitely I think Frank, Ben is one great resource there. There are a number of people, if you start looking on LinkedIn, et cetera, that are involved in this, and we're starting to take a kind of a bigger role in this area as well, starting out now.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're super useful, like you said, for emerging technologies, things that might not be ready for prime time, but with the right investment and the right guidance, could definitely be useful for, governmental use, down the road. And so that's kind of what they're used for. They're seeding and helping to companies that are out there developing leading edge solutions to get those off the ground, and, useful for government agencies.
And I think before we go to the next section, or kind of close this out, I think one other thing I want to mention here is for especially our federal listeners here, participants, there's also a class, or you might have all heard of BestinClass Contracts. So BICs, sometimes they're being referred to as BIC, that is. So that's the federal government and through the White House, OMB, and GSA, and kind of the whole category management efforts, is identifying all the different best-in-class contracts available. And whether you agree with the approach or not, and I'm going to refrain from my opinion right now, but they are being looked at right now, best-in-class contracts, and there's a whole listing of them. And so you can see which contracts, at least through the category management efforts, are being classified. And again, we'll send this out as one of the follow-ups, Janisa, send a link to this. And Frank, if we could include it in the slide set as well, a link to this.
Mm-hmm. But it's in there.
And again, we're adding these to GovShop as well. So again, we're trying to make all this available on GovShop so you can easily search across all of them and see which ones are available to you, and which one's a best-in-class contract, which one is a GWAC, et cetera, et cetera. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're not familiar with best-in-class contracts, to take a look. It is policy, whatever you may think of. the way that these are selected, it's something that I think there's a lot of good stuff in here as well. So definitely take a look at this and the link we send you if you haven't already.
Excellent. Absolutely. Yeah, so like those GWACs we were talking about earlier, all of those are designated as best-in-class contracts. So, so definitely give that a look. Okay, so let's review real quickly the 4 types of interagency acquisitions that we covered today and share a little bit of parting advice. So now's a good time for questions if you have any. So we got the MACs, multi-agency contracts, examples. Oasis small business, complex commercial SATCOM solutions, connections 2. If you can't find your items on the GSA schedule, consider using a MAC for sourcing. Every MAC has its own ordering procedures, so you'll want to understand those before we move on. Then there's the GWACs. These are for information technology products. They include NASA SOUP, 8A STARS, Alliant and Alliant Small Business, VETS 2, CIO SP3, and CIO SP3 Small Business. So these GWACs should definitely be used, or considered at least, when you're sourcing information technology assets like hardware and software. Some of them are available under the GSA Schedules program, others are not. And unlike GSA Schedules, they typically don't have that rolling solicitation period. They will be awarded through, some might call it a pretty large acquisition strategy, but once the awardees are selected, that's typically what you'll get for the life cycle of the contract. Now, some GWACs do have on-ramp and off-ramp procedures, but those typically are only open for a select period of time, towards the end of a contract year before the next option is awarded. Multiple award schedules, also known as federal supply schedules. Those include the GSA federal supply schedules or the VA federal supply schedules for medical products and services. They're very useful for a range of items. And like we mentioned, VA schedules are used primarily by VA contracting professionals for medical equipment and related services, but they can be used by other buyers, including state and locals, because some of those are designated as Coops. Coops, of course, cooperative purchasing programs. There's several different examples, and as Raj mentioned, some of them are privately managed. Others are awarded by state agencies and then made available for other state agencies and localities and tribals, et cetera, to use. So NIGP's cooperative purchasing programs, definitely something to look at. The National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, another great resource for Coops. Sourcewell runs one, NASPO runs one, there's BuyBoard, many, many more. And we're adding them to GovShop just as quickly as we can find them. So if you are on GovShop perusing for Coops and see one that you think should be added, we would love to hear from you. But Coops are, since they are sort of individually awarded, they do have unique ordering procedures. So you'll want to make sure you understand what those procedures are. You want to make sure that your agency policy permits the use of Coops, and you're going to want to find out all the considerations that are involved when you select a Coop as your acquisition strategy. Raj mentioned a guide for OTAs. We've got a guide right now for interagency and cooperative agreements. So some of you may have already downloaded this through our blog, but if you haven't, definitely recommend taking a look at this to get visibility into interagency acquisitions. It's got helpful definitions of some of the terms we've covered, breaks things down into a little bit more detail, and then also concludes with over 30 different MACs, multiple award schedules, and Coops that you can use for your procurement strategy. And it's got links to most of those destination pages as well. So Coops and MACs and MAS, all these things are great ways to shorten your acquisition lead times and get goods and services on contract faster while you take advantage of the buying power of the entire federal sector. Sorry, entire public sector. That's federal, state, local, tribal, school districts, universities, you name it. So that's it primarily for our presentation. I thought we might be able to take a moment to look at GovShop and do, maybe a sample search or two. But I'll pause here for questions or any comments that Raj has before we sort of break into that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Frank. And please do ask everyone. Again, I just want to acknowledge here, we're building on some of this, and we could definitely, if you have any other points you want to make or have any questions, please share them. We thought it would be best to kind of get out here and share some of this information. I think 2 points here. I think there's the two key takeaways here. There's a lot of work to do, right? Everyone, there's no shortage of work to do in terms of in procurement. So looking at what's already been created in terms of contract vehicles, et cetera, is important. And then comparing across those, right? So there are more and more of these different contract vehicles, whichever shape or form that we discussed here, that are available. And so as you start out some procurement where you're seeing a 1-year life cycle, right? Which is not uncommon, right? It's important to take a step back and also in your market research include, what are the set of different options available to you? And then do kind of a real objective analysis against those, right? And to be able to say, okay, these are the different types of vehicles available to us, and this is what's going to best fit our need. So you do need to understand your need first and what your requirements may be, and then go back and look at what's available out there. So that's one point. The second I would just say is, do be mindful as you look at the supply base within all these different GWACs and all these different vehicles, et cetera. If you see that some of the best suppliers or others that are missing from some of these, and you feel like you're not going to get to the best capability, but you will be able to speed up things, then I would just ask you to take caution on that and think twice before you do that, and just think about the pros and cons. Again, their speed might be of utmost importance, but if you think you're going to sacrifice your supply base, meaning the capabilities that you're getting, and you're better off going a different route and doing your own thing, then think hard about that, because ultimately we see too many procurement decisions that are made where because we don't have time, and because we're trying to speed up, and because we want to do fewer contracts, we end up going down the route of just choosing whatever's available, and then we don't get the best capability. And so that's ultimately what's most important, is you get the best capability at the best cost, of course. And so I would just advise on that do your analysis, and then see, are you going to get the capability you need to deliver on the outcomes that have been set forth.
Yeah, great point. And that's also too why I definitely recommend writing up that determination and findings memorandum. In many cases, it's going to be required for you to use an interagency acquisition. But even if it's not, for all the reasons that Raj just eloquated, it's really helpful to put that memorandum together, because it confirms to you, number one, that you've done your homework, and anybody else who's looking that you've done your homework, but it'll also help you think through all the considerations that you have to think about when you're choosing to go the interagency acquisition route. So write up your DNF, spend some time on that. It'll save you time down the road, but most importantly, it'll help you get the best procurement outcome for your customer. Okay, so let's take a look at GovShop. We're really excited about GovShop as a tool. Like I said, it's a Google for government contractors. Keeps you from having to go to multiple websites, and databases across the web to find supplier information. You can find it all in GovShop. And it starts right here on the home screen with sort of a search banner that you'll see in any modern search interface. This is what our results look like. So I just want to call attention to some of these elements before we jump into the demo. But you'll have, any keyword. In this case, cybersecurity will bring up a search engine result, list of suppliers that match that particular keyword. So you can see those supplier search results, and each one of those search results is linked to a supplier profile that's got information like the DUNS number, the location, employees, socioeconomic consideration, capabilities, all kinds of great information that every government contract professional needs to consider when they're doing market research. You can share and export profiles with the command up in the top right there, which is really helpful after you filter down suppliers. So in this case, cybersecurity as a keyword returns several thousand results. Well, we want to whittle that down. So are we looking for small businesses? Are we looking for a particular set-aside program? Do we care about ownership? You can use all these filters to get down to a short list of your most qualified, most relevant suppliers that you'll then go and conduct the more advanced market research on. So let's take a look inside GovShop, and I want to show you sort of how it works. So we'll start from the home screen. This is the landing page. GovShop.com will get you there. It's browser-based, like we said, so there's nothing to download or no licenses to buy. You can go right in here and start searching with keyword, or you can browse our commodity codes and contract vehicles. So that's going to take you to, in this case, our commodities page, which, you know, you might be looking for a particular product or service code or NIGP code. I remember when I was a contracting professional, I didn't always remember the product service codes that were applicable to my requirements. So I would have loved to have a database like GovShop where I could search for a commodity code by keyword. So if it was cybersecurity here, I can see that there's several NIGP codes and product service codes that apply to cyber. And oftentimes you'll need these to complete your e-procurement commands. So that's a healthy thing to look at. Definitely want to call attention to that, but also want to look at the contract vehicles page as well, which is what we focused on a lot today. So you can search all contracts right from here, or if you know you're looking for a co-op, or you know you're looking for a GSA schedule or a GWAC, you can navigate right there. So GWACs, because they're information technology services, might be a good place to look for our cyber, or let's just say security. Maybe that'll work. Let's try information technology. Sort of striking out here. So if you're not having success with your keywords, you can actually just use this command here to see all the different GWACs that are available. So let's take a look at 8A stars 2 as an example. What I like about the contract landing page is it's got a description of the vehicle right up top. So here we see 8A stars 2 as a small business set-aside GWAC for customized IT solutions in these 4 functional areas. Not what you're looking for? No problem. You can head right back over, pull up this view, and see if some of the other ones are better. NASA Soup, for instance, that's a GWAC for advanced technology and other IT and AV products. So now you see, you know, all these suppliers in here that are holders of that GWAC. Definitely think that, you know, this is a useful view, and you can look, you know, we can take a look at some of these profiles too, just to see what's inside. So all of our profiles are free for contractors to claim. They can put all the information that's relevant to their company within here, and then you get this nice view of what these companies have to offer. Go back over to the list and take a look at some of our co-ops. And I see some questions coming in, Eunice, so let me know if these are relevant to what we're doing right now, and we can address them. So here, cooperatives, again, there's a view here, right here, this little button that looks like kind of the top of a flow chart or a pyramid. If you click that, it'll bring up all the lists of cooperatives that we currently have in GovShop. So there's Buy Board, we talked about them earlier, NASPO Value Point. Let's take a look at NASPO Value Point. Again, we've got some basic information on the co-op here and the landing page, so you can see who can use this co-op: states, higher education institutions, nonprofits, political subdivisions. It's managed by a lead state organization, that would be the servicing agency. And then it's got some other information, including a link to learn more about NASPO. So you can see all the contractors that have a spot on NASPO. You can use our filters to basically narrow down this list of 304 suppliers. Let's say we're really only interested in small businesses, for example. Well, I just went from 304 suppliers to 121. Maybe I'm interested in a company that's in a hub zone. Well, there you go. There's one company that's a small business in a hub zone that has a place on this NASPO vehicle. So if that basically fits what I'm looking for, I've just knocked down my supplier discovery time by tens of minutes, hours, who knows. So that's kind of how GovShop works. We're really excited about it, especially some of these profiles. So Raj, anything you want me to show off here that I'm missing?
No, I think that about covers it. Like I said, I think if you can go back, Frank, to the contracts page, um, and just click on the tree for a second. Um, yeah, so I think you can click down these different trees here,
Hmm.
see what's included. So we have the entire federal supply schedule. Hopefully, the easiest search you've ever done on a federal supply schedule here. And then you can also search GWACs and national cooperatives on the. So we're adding. What I can tell you is we're adding more and more contracts here. We're adding other GWACs and other larger contract vehicles in here as well. And then we're adding more regional cooperatives and others, really contracts that are available to state local agencies. And then we'll be adding OTAs and others as well. So we're bringing all of it together. And tell us, please. What I would ask is test it out, just like any product. It's in development, and we'd love to hear, a couple of things from you. One, how easy is it to search everything? We're putting all the data in here, but how easy can you find it? And if you have any advice, please do let us know. But I would just say, go on there right now or right after this on govshop.com, give it a test drive, tell us, what you think, any feedback, and we'd be happy to hop on the phone as well and kind of help you out if you need to kind of find the right information on here. But this information is coming together, and so definitely test it out, check it out, and let us know what you think, and we can help you find the info you need.
Yeah, and you can call us or you can use our chat feature right here. If you're having trouble finding something or you need a little assistance, shoot us a note through the chat. We actively manage that. We're happy to, like Raj said, hop on a phone call, talk you through things, offer whatever support we can. So definitely encourage you to use that chat feature. I would be remiss if I didn't show you really quickly the search and export features that I alluded to. So let's just say, let me clear my filters here. Let's just say that I wanted to, add these 4 companies because I've done research and I know these are the 4 companies that I'm most interested in. I can share those by email or I can export them to a PDF. So that determination and findings memo that you're going to be developing if you want to use an interagency acquisition might ask you for your initial market research results. So you could have done the exercise we just did by searching and filtering on the contract vehicles page. Once you find those, selection or the handful of suppliers and companies that match your criteria, you can export that into a, downloadable PDF, slide it right in that DNF as an attachment and evidence that you've done that initial market research. So very handy tool right there. You only need to create an account. The account's free. It takes about a minute to set up in order to use the share and export features.
Hey,
All
Frank,
right, so that is.
We did have a
Yes,
quick question
please.
about kind of resources that might help people get started. And I wanted just to direct to the buyer resources tab, and then also the opportunity to download a keyword template that can also kind of help get you started. But since you were in the window, I figured you could kind of show them from here.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah, so getting started with GovShop is easy. This is sort of our getting started guide. You can contact us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think that's the 7 days a week is Director Raj's line, if I'm not mistaken. He's the weekend hours there. We also offer some great GovShop training. So take a look at that. We've got some of these awesome tutorials. A lot of these videos, are just quick demonstrations of how you can use GovShop most effectively. Sign up for our webinars and events too. We do about 2 or 3 of these every month. And then check out some of the resources we have around market and supplier research. Quick links to our videos if you want to check those out. This is definitely, especially if you're earlier in your career and you're looking for tips on how to conduct more effective government market research. This has been one of our more popular webinars, this Techniques for Effective Market Research, and you can earn continuous learning points for watching it. Unisa mentioned the keyword template. I also think this is a really useful tool here. You can, I'm gonna call it up. It basically just walks you through the best way to find suppliers. Like, I know it used to be a hard time. I used to struggle with, where do you even start a market research task? So consider using and downloading this GovShop search assistance tool. It'll kind of walk you through the process of early market research so that you can get to the point where you are able to find relevant suppliers to fit your needs. And this is another a good thing to do, especially if you got to write that DNF, because a lot of the information you're going to include in here is going to be relevant to that termination and findings. All right. Well, I've just about lost my voice for now, but are there any other questions or other points we can cover?
No, I think we're just about out of time over here. So
fantastic. Give everybody a couple minutes back in your day. Thank you all very much for joining, and we'll see you next time.